Hi guys! I hope you're having a good week and I hope things are coming along with your policy paper assignment. I know that's coming up quickly. Pardon me. Um, I just finished reviewing all of your discussion board 11 responses and I was pleased with the conversation as usual. I thought you guys did a really nice job of carefully considering the issues presented by both of those videos and kind of juxtaposing that with what you found in the text. I wanted to kind of highlight a few things that weren't necessarily explicit within the videos, but kind of were alluded to. So the Climate of Doubt video had a little piece in it discussing who was funding the Americans for Prosperity organization that was putting on those conferences where they were trying to promote climate doubters. And they talked about this donors trust contribution that was funding about half of all of the donations to this, very well-funded organization, Americans for Prosperity, and that they couldn't find anything about who was providing those donations through donors trust. And I wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit more because this is becoming an increasingly important issue in politics and thereby in policy. So it's particularly important when you think about global warming, particularly if you're cynical like me. So if you think about who stands to gain something by preventing these measures like curbing our greenhouse gas emissions or reducing our carbon dioxide in the environment, who stands to gain by putting a halt to those types of measures? And overwhelmingly the answer is corporations. And then when you see that there are these entities like the Americans for Prosperity entity that's out there fighting so hard against the 97% of scientists who tend to agree that humans are involved in global warming and that we likely can and should try to do something to curb our influence on the climate. These corporations are providing lots of funds to these kind of benign entities, or they seem benign, they seem like just Americans who are concerned, yet it's really funded by large corporations. Like David and Charles Koch, who they mentioned in the Climate of Doubt movie. And this kind of ties into a recent development, a Supreme Court case, Citizens United versus FEC. And if you guys are interested in those issues of corporate money influencing politics, you should definitely check out, even just a quick summary of that Supreme Court case. Essentially, the holding from that case centers around saying that corporations they have the same constitutional rights as people, including First Amendment and free speech rights. So the extension of that argument is that the government can't prevent corporations from spending money to buy speech in federal or state elections. So if corporations want to get a message out, they can buy lots of airtime, they can donate to these other shell organizations that look like concerned citizens but really aren't. They're concerned corporations because they have, whatever their motivations are for trying to influence policy one way or the other. So, for example, even the NRA could provide money to a citizens group through one of these super PACs, the political action committees that are so influential in elections now. These large corporations can really sway our political process through the money that they invest in elections and messaging. They can even endorse specific candidates. They can have a super PAC, one of those political action committees for a certain candidate. And they do nowadays. That's quite typical. But they're also issue related. So you just need to be on the lookout for who's paying for the information you're receiving and what their motivations are. And it's not always clear anymore because of these, this process of, big donors providing money anonymously, it makes it really hard to kind of sort through what's going on and who benefits from what's happening. But I just want you guys to be critical consumers, and I wanted to add that information in there. But beyond that, it's kind of a detour, but I think a relevant detour. Anyway, I wanted to also mention, some of you guys brought this up in your posts, which I thought was really insightful. But first of all, since the book and the materials that we viewed in the videos, we've had some developments where all of the developed world joined into the Paris Climate Accords, which was trying to regulate the amount of global warming that we see over the next decades. All of the world's countries coming together in Paris to sign this agreement and say we commit to curbing our emissions, or however we're going to get to this reduction in global warming, committing to a plan and signing into the agreement. The US did sign into the agreement under the Obama administration, yet one of the first actions from the Trump administration was to withdraw the US from this agreement. So we are now, as of about a day ago, the only country in the world to not be part of the Paris Climate Accords. I think Syria just joined in a couple days ago. That was the other holdout. So now it's just us that are not a part of this. And there are still cities and states, California, for example, that are letting the world know that they're still committed to all of the same benchmarks that were set forth within the agreement, yet our country, our federal government, is not on board with that. So that's a recent change in terms of understanding how our politics are flowing with regard to the issue of global warming. Beyond that, I'm sorry, I'm going to forget who brought it up initially, but there was one of your classmates brought up the issue of global warming as a social justice issue, and I thought that was particularly insightful and important to why we're even looking at this during, the social policy and social work course. But this is kind of an increasing trend where social work is just now kind of coming on board with seeing environmental justice as an area of practice, recognizing that the effects of global warming, if we're accepting those effects as a real possibility, so we'd have to, step outside of the climate of doubt world and say, okay, we're going to acknowledge that global warming is happening, and recognizing that the most vulnerable populations are going to pay the heaviest toll during this process. People of greater financial means, of course, can protect themselves and insulate themselves from the effects of global warming much better than many of the people that we saw in the Discovery Channel video that we aired, and showing some of these island communities where really there aren't many resources, and they live off of many of the resources in the land, which will become unavailable to them, and a lot of the places that people live will be uninhabitable. Anyhow, a lot of these issues are kind of coming to the fore right now, and social work is just getting on board with that. I've posted a couple of articles relating to, I posted an article relating to climate change as a human rights and social justice issue, in case you're interested in reading more about that. I also provided the link to the Paris Climate Accord Agreement through the UN, in case you wanted to learn more about that. I wanted to mention some practical things before I sign off. So in Module 12 that you guys are completing this week, the Waiting for Superman video link was apparently not working, or at least it wasn't working for me and a couple of other people in the class. And I worked with Blackboard to have that restored. You have to go through the University of Alabama library. That's where the link takes you now, and you can select the Waiting for Superman video within the library. But it should play for free, and that hopefully will be a reliable way to view the video. Also, with regard to your policy paper, I think in my last video, a couple of people have brought it to my attention, and I have to apologize. I made some mention about page limits with regard to the policy paper, and there are no page limits set by the assignment. There are suggestions around the number of sentences that you might use to respond to certain prompts. And if you guys can be as concise as possible and mindful of those, sentence suggestions, I would appreciate that. If not just for my grading process, but also for your just a writing exercise, because you do have to find ways to express yourselves as concisely as possible. Beyond that, Pardon me, my voice is going today. I just wanted to remind you guys some of the things that I'm looking at in the policy paper beyond responding to the prompts, which you know is part of the call of the assignment, is to focus on grammar and your writing style. That is part of the grading rubric, as you'll see if you pull up that rubric. And also, please, I'm hoping that everyone has taken heed to my warnings from the last assignment around citations. I will be around tomorrow. If anyone has any questions around citations, please feel free to reach out. But really, err on the side of caution. If you're using material from another source, even if you're not directly quoting from that other source, you need to provide a citation for it. If it's something that you read, then you turn to your computer and, process that reading and put something on paper. That reading informed what you're writing, so cite that at the end of what you've written. If you actually provide a direct quote with quotation marks, you should have a page number so somebody could actually find where that quote appears in the reading that you're citing. If you have questions about any of that, please let me know, because it is rather serious, and I want to send you guys out of my class feeling prepared to not, have any issues around that academically or professionally. And it's always much safer to err on the side of oversighting rather than underciting, because if you fail to cite somebody, that is plagiarism. That's kind of the definition. And I don't want to have to make an issue for you. It's not something I want to do, especially not right now, guys. So please, please cite everything. I have a hard time believing that anyone's trying to be academically dishonest, yet part of the process is, applying those citation rules so that you don't fall into that trap of appearing as if you might be trying to be academically dishonest. Okay, I'll stop talking about it for now. But do feel free to reach out tomorrow if you have any questions. I'm around. All right. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.